Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, you'll hear 3 lovely revenge stories. I hope you guys stay for the stories today and do hit that subscribe button for future revenge stories. Let's dive in. I divorced my ex-wife over 5 years ago for repeatedly cheating on me with over 13 different men and 2 women. To give you some background, my ex and I used to be swingers until the last year of our marriage. Things had spiraled out of control, so I said that I was done with swapping partners. Unfortunately, she did not agree with me and kept hooking up with guys behind my back. 6 months prior to our divorce, my oldest child was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. I won't go into details to preserve my anonymity. My wife started to crack under pressure and started to drink a lot, putting herself and our children in danger. It got so bad that I moved out of the house for a couple of weeks and took our kids with me. During this time, her best friend, who we'll call Amy, approached me because my ex had disclosed all of her dirty deeds to her at a girls' night out a couple of days ago. She disclosed that she had been sleeping with a new guy every night and getting drunk when she had the kids. She also told Amy that she went out one night a month ago and left our 3-year-old and 4-year-old kids at home alone while they slept so she could meet a guy. Amy said that my ex planned on filing for divorce once she drained some additional money from me while living rent-free in my home. Amy and I were both disgusted and knew that things had to come to an end. My ex hated living in the same house with me because she hated me and could not go mess around with her flock of desperate men. We had to come up with a plan to get her out of the house and document all her poor behavior so we could limit her custody of my children. Step 1. I moved my happy ass back into our house and plopped down on the bed right next to her. She lost her mind, saying that she wanted me out of the house now and would call the police if I did not comply. What she did not know was that I was recording the audio of our conversation. I told her to pound sand, and then she called the cops, reporting me for domestic violence. Well, the popo showed up in no time flat and had me in handcuffs so fast that it made my head spin. The detective came to the squad car to talk to me, and I let him listen to the recording. The longer he listened, the more angry he became with my wife. Before long, she was the one in cuffs in the back of the squad car, and she got to spend her night in jail. She went to stay with Amy for the next week, as she wasn't allowed back at our house, as I got a restraining order. During this week, she went on a spending spree, buying herself a new laptop, a new iPhone, and a new wardrobe. She drained our bank account and started to dip into my savings. Amy also confirmed that she was drinking heavily at her house, to the point that she threw up and defecated on herself all over the bathroom. Amy video recorded her bender and provided me with 20 minutes of video showing a woman out of control drunk. The next day, I went and withdrew all of our money from savings and deposited them into my new bank account so I would have money to pay the bills. She lost it when she found out that she had no more money to burn through anymore. She told Amy that she was contemplating ending her life because things had gotten so bad. I hate my ex, but I didn't want to see her harm herself at all. Amy convinced her that she needed some help and went with her to check into a mental hospital. This worked out fantastic because she was getting some help, but it also showed that she was a danger to herself and the kids. I went for a consult at my attorney to start the divorce proceedings and to complete the needed paperwork. My attorney was appalled at the actions of my ex and was 100% on board with helping me get primary custody. He filed my divorce decree and also got the judge to agree to a temporary restraining order until our initial hearing. We served her the papers while she was in the hospital and set the initial hearing for 2 weeks. The initial hearing came and she showed up with her attorney. Since it was a pre-litigation hearing, they did not know what information we had. She got on the stand and started lying her heart out, telling the judges how abusive I was, and that's what pushed her into a mental hospital. She made a very compelling case and put on a Grammy Award-winning act. Then it was my turn. My attorney presented all of the evidence, videos, and bank records. The defining moment was when my attorney called Amy to the stand to testify. She told an appalling story about how neglectful the mom was and was completely out of control. A story about a mother who had substance abuse issues that were only getting worse. My ex could not close her mouth the whole time that Amy was on the stand. She made her attorney look like an idiot, as all of her lies were now being exposed and were contrary to what she told him. When the dust settled, I was awarded sole custody and she was awarded supervised visitation until she went to rehab and got additional treatment. We quickly settled out of court, agreeing to a graduated visitation schedule once she complied with the rehab and mental health counseling. I got the house after paying her portion of the equity, got to keep all of my investment accounts, and get to see my kids 80% of the time. She got to live with her mom for the next 2.5 years and jump from job to job. Life is pretty good 5 years down the road, and is even better knowing that she isn't my problem anymore. Well, Amy was definitely the MVP in this situation. OP may have suffered a much different outcome if he did not have Amy to testify against her best friend. Imagine that, going to court and having your best friend take the stand and testify against you. Oh my goodness. Surprised Pikachu face, Steve-O. Surprised Pikachu face. I used to work at the post office as an RCA, which is a Rural Carrier Associate. It was a part-time driver job, and it paid well, and I wanted to get a full-time job with benefits, so you have to start somewhere. The full-time driver on my route was Bill. Bill was his own man. He did what he wanted, and the postmaster allowed it. When I was trained, I rode one day with Bill. The next day, Bill called out. I then had to sort the mail and drive the route all alone. It was horrible. The PM should have told him to come in, but he was a spineless man. I didn't finish until around 8 PM. It should have been around 3 PM given the time of year and how long it would eventually take me. My schedule was every Saturday and any vacation days Bill would take. I also covered every time he called out. Now, this was supposed to be a one-day-a-week job, as I had a full-time job as well at my local hospital. My post office job was in the next county over, about 45 minutes away each way. I would get calls from 6 AM from Bill with the same BS excuse for him not wanting to come to work. He would say he had to see an orthodontist today. I worked with these doctors, and I know there was no way he would be able to get an appointment that early if he needed an appointment. He should have called me the day before so I could get my second job covered. Again, spineless PM would allow it to happen without any recourse. On my anniversary, I had told him that I was going to take my wife out to a nice lunch before we went to our job at the hospital. At 6 AM, the phone rang, and it was the same lie as always, and I had to go in. I reminded him that it was my anniversary, and he said, "Too bad." I went in, totally pissed off. The same thing on my birthday, and then on my wife's birthday, he called out, and I had to work both jobs. A few months later, and nothing had changed. I applied to nursing school and was accepted for the fall program. I had several months, so I kept it to myself. My plan was to work the same way I had, and if I was offered a full-time post office job, I'd take it. If not, I'd go to nursing school. Both were great careers. So Bill called out whenever the workload was heavy, like with Sears catalogs. They were the worst. Now, Bill had gotten remarried shortly before I started with the post office. They never had a chance for a honeymoon, so they put it off. They scheduled a 2-week trip to the Caribbean. When he told me, there was a month to go before they left, which was plenty of notice. He told me the tickets were non-refundable, so don't screw me over. I had had enough of Bill and the PM screwing me over all the time, so 10 days before he left, I put in my 2-week notice. The PM assumed that I would work through Bill's vacation. Nope, just the first 4 days. Bill called me at home and said, "Man, I've been good to you. You've got to cover my time off. The vacation is non-refundable." I reminded him of all the times he's lied to force me to cover, and the days I had to work for him, like my anniversary, my birthday, my wife's birthday, etc. And also, how he screwed me over in my orientation, making my first several weeks miserable. I left the day I said I would, and the PM refused to cover, and Bill had to cancel the trip and come in and work. I love nursing, so I made the best choice. Oh my goodness. What a great ProRevenge. Turns out that playing the long game is super satisfying. Causing him to have to work on his honeymoon and losing that money he paid for the trip. Oh my goodness, OP. You deserve to take a bow. Well done, my friend. Well done. When I was in 8th grade, I tried out for a spot on the drill team. For those unfamiliar with that, it's the group that dances alongside the marching band, and we were separate from the cheerleaders. Think the Rockets, but awkward. The reason I tried out was because those girls, you know the ones, pretty, popular, teacher favorites, they laughed at me when I showed up for the informational meeting. They said I wasn't right for it, and I didn't belong. It made me more determined to learn the routines and become a little more fit so I can do them. I was as flexible as much as a 14-year-old could be, but at home I practiced and stretched and showed up for the rehearsals and tryouts. Only a couple of decent girls would not act like I was poison in the line when we had to link our arms. I passed tryouts because I could do the routine. My dad, who owned his own business doing car repair, wasn't rich, but he managed to pay for my camp fees and uniforms. He dropped me off each morning of summer camp on his way to work. There, we learned the routines that we would be performing at pep rallies and football games. We had to stand out in the sweltering Louisiana heat and humidity in August, and stand in position for minutes at a time. Any move you had to do kicks. This was a version of push-ups or having to run laps where you stood and did sets of 25 high kicks for each infraction. I ended up with blisters on my upper arms from the sun. So let me tell you about the sponsor, the teacher in charge. She was the epitome of a cranky old woman who had an only child who went through these dance teams and did private dance lessons. She was perfect to her mom. At the time, dance moms wasn't a thing, but that's exactly like how she was. She would berate me for the smallest things and basically bully me with the other girls. For example, when I was feeling faint for having to do kicks for the third time that day, I was sitting down beside another girl who had pulled a hamstring. She's sitting with us while watching her daughter, who was a choreographer of the course, commenting how wonderful she was, and said for me to get back out there. She could understand why the other girl was sitting because she was an athlete, so she got a pass. She would yell at me from across the gym to suck in my stomach. The other girls would say things to me also, and it was as though she encouraged it. Not only is junior high bad enough, but this on top of it was bad. I tried to be strong and to show them I could do it, but it made me cry as soon as I got home. The night of our first game performance, I was waiting to be picked up with a few others and the sponsor. She went to the bathroom and came back with one girl who was caught smoking in the bathroom with some high school kids. Her punishment was she had to sit out the next game. My dad was running late as he couldn't leave the shop unattended, and after about 30 minutes she told me, "You know, this means you're off the team." My dad pulled up a few minutes later, and as soon as I got in his truck, I was sobbing. I told him what happened, and he said, "Just a minute, I'll be right back," and proceeded to rip that woman a new one about her attitude towards me. So, the revenge. So, years later, this woman brings her car to my dad's shop for repair. He remembers her, but she doesn't remember him. She was just as condescending as she'd ever been, treating him like a lowly servant under her because he did manual labor. He was writing her estimate for the insurance, and she kept trying to get him to add in stuff that wasn't caused by the accident that she was there for. Things like a ding on the back bumper when the damage was in the front, etc. He wouldn't do it, and she got all huffy and said something like if he didn't, she would have his license revoked. Now, since my dad had his shop broken into and all of his tools were stolen, he had installed cameras. He sent that video to the insurance adjuster, and she got hit with attempting insurance fraud. I don't know the exact extent of it, but she should be glad her threats to his livelihood weren't added on there. I wonder what the consequence of auto insurance fraud is. Guys, let me know if you have the answer. And that wraps up this episode of r/ProRevenge. If you missed the last episode of r/ProRevenge, I'll link it right here. If you want to hear a Karen story where she's charged $10,000 for being a Karen, click right here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.